Today I'm headed to Central City, Kentucky in Muhlenberg County, and I'm going to make a couple of stops here. One of them is going to be to the cemetery where Phil Everly of the Everly Brothers is buried. But first I'm going to make a stop at the Muhlenberg Music Museum and find out more information about the famous people that were from this area. So let's head on over to the museum to see what we can find out. Today I'm in Central City, Kentucky, and I'm at the Music Museum here. And I'm going to introduce you to a man that is going to be able to tell me a lot of information that I didn't know. So if you will, please give me your name and tell me how you're affiliated with the museum.
My name is Freddie Mays. I am Tourism Director of Central City, and actually it makes me the overseer for Muhlenberg Music Museum as well.
Okay. And you've already mentioned something, but I'll let you tell it to my viewers that Phil is buried here in Central City, at least a part of his ashes
Yes,
are.
ma'am.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
I can. Actually, their father, Ike, is buried here. Rose Hill Cemetery is the name of the cemetery, just at the edge of town. It actually is located in the area about where they would have lived when they were here years ago. They lived in a small community, a mining community called Brownie. So this is just not far from there where Ike is actually buried. And then a portion of Phil's ashes are buried here as well. A portion of his ashes were with Don. A portion of his ashes are with his family in California. And I'm assuming that a portion of his ashes his mom would have had as well. So ashes were shared among other family members there. Also buried there, Don has a daughter that didn't survive childbirth. She's buried in that cemetery as well. So there are 3 Everly headstones there, one for Ike, one for Phil, and then one for Don's daughter.
Okay. And I know that Don passed away in Nashville, and what can you tell me about his ashes, if anything?
We know that it was cremated, but as far as any remains where they might be, we're really not sure about that. We had expected the portion to be actually here and to be buried alongside his father and his brother, but that never happened. So I don't have any details about final resting place for Don.
Okay. And I'm fixing to take a walk into the museum and look around. Can you tell me anything that stands out to you personally in this museum?
Sure. Our music heritage is more than the Everly Brothers. It's incredible to think that in our small community that we have so much that has impacted the world to come out of this small area. But we have a nice display for the Everly Brothers. There's also a display for Merle Travis. Merle Travis Success, Country Music Hall of Fame, singer, songwriter, guitarist. We also have a nice display for John's Prime that's just been expanded. John Prine's success is in Americana and folk music, numerous Grammy Awards, Lifetime Achievement, a number of things there for him. We also have a display for Jim Walker, a local high school graduate who has had a phenomenal career in classical flute. He's a principal flutist in the Pittsburgh Philharmonic and the Los Angeles Philharmonic. He actually formed a jazz group that performed on The Tonight Show 4 different occasions and at the Academy Awards when staged with Paul McCartney. Beyond that, he extended into the movie industry, and he has been a part of the music over 750 movies in Hollywood. His biggest claim to fame probably is the last Titanic movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. The flute solo played throughout that movie is our high school graduate playing that. So we have a display for him as well. And then a display for Legends of Thumb Picking, a guitar style that was birthed in the county. It's gone all over the world thanks to Merle Travis and to Chet Atkins and other guitarists like them. We also have 2 Hollywood celebrities out of our community that we honor. One is Warren Oates. Warren Oates, a lot of movies back in the 70s and 80s. He actually was in The Heat of the Night. He was with Sidney Poitier. He played in The Wild Bunch. He played in Return of the Seven. He played the lead role in Dillinger. And his last big role was actually Stripes with Bill Murray. He played Sergeant Hulka in that movie. He's from the county. And then the other person that we recognize and have displayed for is James Best. James Best had a number of roles, through the years, but his most famous role was as Roscoe P. Coltrane, the sheriff on Dukes of Hazzard. And in addition to having a display to honor his accomplishments, he's first cousin to the Everly Brothers. His mother, their father, were brother and sister.
Okay. Is he buried here, or any of his family members buried in this town?
Actually, no. His mother died young, and there were 9 children, and so a number of the kids were adopted, raised outside the area. So actually, Corydon is where he was raised, born here, but raised in Corydon, and I think that he's buried either in Corydon or in North Carolina. I'm not sure about that.
Okay. And you talked about John Prine, and his ashes was also strode in the river here, right?
That's correct. In the song Paradise, which names Muhlenberg County specifically, the lyrics he had said when he died that he wanted to spread his ashes in Green River, or float at Rochester Dam, to float down Green River, and that was done in a private ceremony by his family. And then I think a portion of his ashes are actually in 3 spots. The other 2 are private, and we have the one public place where his ashes are known to be spread. And the Prine family has acknowledged to the public that if you want to honor John Prine, that is the place to recognize his burial place.
Oh, okay. One more thing. It was many years ago when I came here, and you informed me that you used to be in a different building, but the little car that I'm going to show in just a minute out here, I was told at the time was donated by Don Everly. Can you tell me a little bit about this car or anything?
I can. When music festivals that the brothers hosted from 1988 to 2002, those festivals were very special to us. And during that time, Don, of course, was living in Nashville, and we were a nice getaway for him. So Don actually purchased Lake Malone Lodge. It's about 30 minutes from us. It is a state park. It's our local water recreation. So Don was there regularly. It was damaged by fire. At one point, he decided not to take it or not to rebuild. When he moved back to back to Nashville for a time, he left the car here, and we made it a part of our display. So it's been in the museum now for a number of years.
So you said he owned a lodge here for a while?
He did, Lake Malone Lodge. It just was just across from the entrance into the state park, and he was there regularly for a few years. But again, fire damaged it, and he decided not to build back, and then he went back to Nashville full time.
So the lodge has been burnt down?
It is gone. He did not restore it at all.
Oh,
it is completely gone now. And then the other thing we've done to honor the brothers and John Prine, those music festival years are going to be very special to us. 15 years of music festivals every Labor Day weekend brought lots and lots of attention, positive sort of attention to our county. So just this last June, we dedicated a plaza in our downtown area called Festival Square, and there are bronze statues of the Everly Brothers and John Prine in the plaza with great granite wall black backdrops, and we think that we have the only statues of the brothers and John Prine in the world, in fact. So we encourage people to come and visit us in order to do photo ops and to enjoy, our music heritage.
Well, thank you so much for all the information. I look forward to looking around here in the museum, and I also have a car museum attached to it. My husband's already went out to see that.
Yes, the building that we're now in was a car dealership years ago, and when the city acquired it for us, we took the showroom and the office area in the parts department and made them our music museum. And where the service bays were located became Kentucky Motorsports Hall of Fame and Museum. So you get a chance to actually visit 2 museums under the same roof.
Oh, thank you so much for giving me all this information, and I'm sure my viewers will love to see it.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Now we're going to take a swing around with the camera to take a look at the car that Don Everly had left at the museum. And of course, it was at the time they were in the other building, which was a lot smaller building. But they've got a cardboard cutout there of Don and Phil. Of course, Don's driving, and they look like they're taking John Prine off for a cruise in the car with them. And Mr. Mays told me that a dealership there in Central City refinished the car for the museum, and it looks really awesome. I noticed in the seat, in between the seat, I should say, this receipt showing that Don Everly owned the car, and that at the time he was living in Kentucky when he owned it. Now I'm going to show you as an insert there. In 2016, we went to the first museum they had here, and I took a picture of this car that it didn't have a permanent place in the museum, and it was just sitting out in front of the museum at the time. It also had Muhlenberg, Kentucky tags on it, but in the showroom here at the museum today, it has the Everly tag on it. Around from the back of the car, you'll notice a big rack of records that they've got in plastic that you can at least look through it because they're covered to protect them from damage, and they are of the Everly Brothers mainly. But anyway, Mr. Mays brought to my attention about the two suits here. But first, I want to let you look at the Muhlenberg gold records that came from, and it's from John Prine, the Everly Brothers, and Merle Travis that are listed on this sign. So you take a look at that. But back to the two suits, I think he told me it was Phil Everly and, of course, Don's cousin that gave him this, donated the suits, but it could have been just a good friend. But anyway, he knows one of the suits is Phil's, but he's assuming both of the suits were for Phil's, because if you look at them close enough, one of them has got a cummerbund and the other one's got a vest. And when the brothers performed, they always wore the same outfits. As I go farther into the museum, I notice this poster here that shows the Everly Brothers, and it also shows some of their records and lists the year that they performed them and all. And then next to that was a very interesting display case that showed Phil and Don as very young children, as you can see there. And I'm sorry my reflection is on it, but maybe I can zoom in close enough for you to get a good look at it. And of course, they were young there. But there's also down there a brochure showing that their mom and dad had them performing in their country western as the Everly family, even before they went as a duo. And of course, that's their mom with them. And they held concerts here, or I should say, I guess you would call them festivals, every year up until 2002. And I found this very interesting. They were inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, and they've got their trophies for each one of them there, and of course some photos of them together. But it also had pamphlets that you could read more information on them and everything laying beneath each one of them. So I'll give you a closer look at the top emblem. And of course this one belonged to Don in 2002, and you could see the pamphlet there by it. And it is telling when Don passed away, and it's mentioned in Shenandoah, and that is Shenandoah, Iowa, as they lived there for several years. Plaque that has the main headliners, I guess you would say, are entertainers from the music festivals they had there in Central City from 1988 to 2002. And of course, you'll see Everly Brothers and John Prine up there a lot. There's also a case that shows them with the Everly Brothers with Bobby V, and there they are with Buddy Holly and Jimmy Velvet. And there they are relaxing, talking to Buddy Holly. And I guess the last picture that I'll show you in the case is there they are with Jimmy Velvet and Jerry Lee Lewis. Here's a picture of the Everly Brothers, their mother, along with Moses Rager. He was one of the 4 thumb pickers, they said, from Central City or Muhlenberg County. And this is showing a plaque, they say, that is down at Drakesboro, which is about 7.5 miles from here. And if we get a chance, we'll stop by to see what the 4 fountain looked like, or the legend of the 4 legends fountain, I should say. They've got the picture of the 4 legends that are going to be located there. That was, first one was Moses Rager. The next one was Kennedy Jones. And then the one there in the country western outfit is Ike Everly, which was Don and Phil's dad. And of course, there's a country music star, Merle Travis, made up the 4 on it. So speaking of Merle Travis, we'll do a little bit. They've got a little small section here on him. It's a record showing that Tennessee Ernie Ford recorded one of Merle Travis's songs, 16 Tons. And then it's got a picture of Merle Travis there with, looked like where he performed at, and a guitar of his. And there's a cutout, and I think a local, Mr. Mays told me a local person made a couple guitars that have went in the museum, and one of them is dedicated there to Merle Travis, as you can see on the handle of the guitar. Next to that is a section on the music festival they had going on for years there. And anyway, I will mention next to that, we're going to be looking at James Walker. And Mr. May said he was like a music teacher there for years in Muhlenberg, but he has a renowned flute player, and he has since moved to California. And there's a vacancy on the wall above it and all. Mr. Mays said that he had talked to Mr. Walker out in California, and he's going to be sending stuff to go on the display wall there for it. But it does have one of his flute and some of the albums that he played on in it. The display case also has several caps in it, and I particularly like the one that has an emblem showing the Oscar award and saying the Oscars on it. And here's his flute with his name card on it. Now heading over to the section on the 2 Hollywood movie stars that were from this area. The first one we're going to be looking at is that of James Best. And James was born with the birth name Jewel Franklin Guy. And his mother died when he was very young, about 3 years old. And he was put into an orphanage, and he was adopted by the Best family, and they changed his name to James Nolan Best. James is also buried in Indiana in the cemetery, the same one that his adopted parents are buried in. A couple of other things that surprised me about James is that he was an artist. At one time, he was also a college professor. He was a musician, and he even owned his own acting school. And there you can see him playing a guitar with Andy Griffin when he did his show. Next, we're going to be focusing on Warren Oates. And a couple of things that I found out about Warren Oates was that he still has several cousins living in Muhlenberg County. He appeared in more than 50 movies and more than 35 TV series. He died at the age of 53 in California. He was cremated, and his ashes were scattered over his ranch in Montana. Next, we're going to be looking at a display on Jay Dozier, and he's a young man that was from Muhlenberg County, but now lives in Atlanta, Mr. Mays said. But he's best known for making specially typed microphones, and there he is with a giant microphone statue. And he would make it for people such as country music stars Winona Judd, Brooks and Dunn, Reba McEntire, just to name a few, as well as for pop stars like the Backstreet Boys and Justin Timberlake. And he didn't leave out rock musicians either. He would do it for like Leonard Skinner also. Now we're going to the section on John Prine in the museum, and that's a gold record that he received for writing a song that Tanya Tucker recorded on one of her albums, TNT album. And next to that is going to be a record that is gold that he received for writing a song, Paradise, which he was most famous for, that John Denver would sing. I'm sorry about my reflection in it, but with it being under glass, it's hard not to get reflection with the lighting they have in the museum. And we'll still stick with John Prine. There's a cutout of him with a guitar. Has a lot of memorabilia with newspaper clippings and CDs that he recorded and all. And he, of course, was cremated, and his ashes were strode there in the river in Muhlenberg County. And I wanted to show you a picture of him there with Phil Everly, and that might have been at one of the homecoming festivals they had. Also, there's like a folk art, and I mentioned there's like 2 guitars in there. The other one is on Merle Travis, and this one is dedicated and was the first one the man done that was dedicated to John Prine, and it kind of talks about the Green River where his ashes has been strode, and his song that was so popular, Paradise. But before I leave the museum, I have to say they have a free standing jukebox, and you can play the records. It used to take quarters. It no longer does. And I wanted you to see that it still does work. It still does play. And of course, I had to punch a record to be played for me, and of course it was one of the Everly Brothers. And due to copyright laws, you won't get to hear it, but as you can see from a lot of this in here, it's got a lot of the Everly Brothers songs to be done, and Merle Travis, and of course John Prine. So just wanted you to see that it was very nice seeing that. Also, there's no admission charge to the museum, but donations are greatly appreciated. So anyway, we're going to go to the outside of the museum. There's a couple of things out there worth seeing. As you step outside, you're going to see a monument to him, but I've inserted a picture that I took in 2016 when I visited the museum at the other place, and it also had a guitar carved out of wood for Don that said parking too, and I'm sure it was there even before either one of them passed away. But it's got a nice monument here. It's got a dedication wall telling some of their accomplishments. It's also got a nice picture of each one of them. And as we look at the marker telling about some of the accomplishments, it doesn't say Country Music Hall of Fame, but they've been inducted to that. And of course, the Walk of Fame is in Hollywood, California. They're on that. So we'll take a closer look at the marker here, and then we'll go down the wall as it's got some more murals painted on it. And as we head down the wall, you can see there's one. They have a sports museum, not a sports museum, but a car museum also. That's motorsports in with the museum in the back half of it. And here's the mural of each one of the legends that we had talked about in there. And that starts down with the thumb pickers, which is Kennedy Jones, Ike Everly, Mose Rager, and of course Merle Travis was included in that bunch. And then they have John Prine and James Walker, which went by Jim's Muriel. And here they have Merle Travis, which was also part of the thumb pickers, but he's also part of the main music entertainers along with Phil and Don in the museum. And Where the Music Never Ends is the theme there at Central City, Kentucky. And there's talking about the Motorsports Museum part. And as we finish off this little area, it's also dedicated as the Margaret Everly Way, which is Don and Phil's mom's name. And since he mentioned Mr. Mays did about the statues, we've decided to go that extra block down the road to see that, and it is dedicated to the Everly Brothers along with John Prine. They have several musical notes and several guitars around the Plaza Center, and it has like little dedication markers of who donated and helped get this project going in front of the guitars and the musical notes on some of them. But as you can see, we're seeing the back part of the three statues, and it's got a wonderful looking black marble section with writing on it. So we'll get closer to that and see if we can tell what's on it. And as we get closer, I'm not going to be able to show you all of it as close as I'd like to because it made such a reflection. So I'll just show you a little bit here at the tip of it. This is the Everly Brothers Homecoming Festival section, and it tells a lot of the stars that performed through the years here at it. And there's also a section on the Everly Brothers showing their festival of how many thousands of people would show up, and there's guest star. There's one of Tammy Wynette you might recognize there at the corner. Well, just above Tammy Wynette there, it looks like it may be a younger sketching of John Prine, but I'm not real sure. The one above that, though, is Travis Tritt. That's easy recognizable. And above him looks to be Bo Diddley. There was many celebrity stars that performed at the Homecoming Festival each year that they had it. and it lists a lot of the names up on the very first one I made. It lists all the main ones again. But as we round the corner, you can see my reflection is getting so bad, but it's that of John Prine and telling about his song Paradise and how much he was involved in the music industry. And there's his statue. And of course, there's a statue of Phil and Don. And then you look over at the actual monument or marker part. There is Don and Phil's etched in that. But I'd also like to mention, if you look real close at the guitars that they have got in the monument part, as well as on the bronze statues, it shows that it has stars on it. And if you want to go back, you can look at the very beginning of this tape, and that welcome sign to Central City had the guitars with stars on it. A great honor to the Everly Brothers. Now we'll head on over to Rose Hill Cemetery, where we can see the final resting place of at least part of Phil Everly's ashes. Also, as you enter the cemetery, it's on Everly Brothers Boulevard, and as you go up into the cemetery, there's several roads that you can turn off to, and you'll turn off on the first road that you come to the right if you come in by the Monument Company. And that was the looking at Don's daughter that died at birth. And there's several empty spaces where Don's ashes could have been put, or his the mother of the child, or any other people up there, but there's nobody but Don's daughter there. And Don's, of course, ashes, nobody knows for sure where they're at, but I'm assuming that his wife still maybe has them in her possession. And then you go on the back side, you still see the words Everly. And on the other side from Don's daughter's grave, you can see Phil is kind of to the right, and there's no other markers next to it as you look. And there is room for several more graves to be buried. And there's even room for 3 or 4 graves in between Phil and his dad Ike's grave. And we'll just take a look over at how close he is to the end of the marker on the right hand side. And also we'll come on back down and show you how much space there is in between him and his dad's gravesite. Like I said, there's plenty of room for other people to be buried on each side of Phil, and especially on this side of Ike. And here's a look at Ike's grave, and the grass looks like it needs to be mowed close to it. We'll take one final look at Phil's marker before we head on down the road, as we've got some extra time. We're going to go about that 7.5 miles down to Drakesboro to see the Four Legends fountain where Ike and the others were dedicated to. And as we get there in Drakesboro to see it, the fountain isn't running today. So here's the fountain that you would see if it had the water flowing, but it's not. Also, on the other side, it talks about the thumb pickers. And there's 4 guitars to honor them with their names on the corner of it. And I'm going to show you the one up close there of Ike, Don and Phil's dad. Now, I wouldn't be complete unless going back to Nashville, Tennessee to see the final resting place of Margaret Everly. She died about a month after Don did, and she outlived her family members. And Mr. Mays thought she was buried here in Nashville because she lived in Nashville, but also he thought that she didn't want to be buried underground, and there's no mausoleum there in Central City at the grave site where her family members are. And then mentioned that her mom and dad's even buried in that same cemetery. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day.